how to knit the tubular cast on the easy way. Hi everyone, Norman here. So today I want to show you a cast on that looks almost identical to the tubular cast on, but is so much easier to knit, and you end up with this, well, very invisible, almost kind of sawtooth like cast on without any hassles. And I'm also going to show you how to do it in the round to avoid the dreaded gap here when you want to join a tubular cast on in the round. And the best part is it's so much easier and you don't constantly twist the yarn. I really like this method. Let's show you how to knit it. To start this version of a tubular cast on, we are going to cast on half the number of stitches we require using a long tail cast on around 2 needles. So leave a sizable tail and then cast on stitches. You can start with a slip knot, but I typically prefer to start with a simple twisted loop. Saw what I did here? I just did a simple twisted loop and then start casting on stitches with a simple long tail cast on. So nothing special here except for starting with a twisted loop and using 2 needles. If you want this cast on to be stretchier than normal, then you would have to start with a 2 needle cast on. So this is a version of the long tail cast on where you slip this portion here to the upper needle and this portion here to the lower needle. Let's do that one more time. So you deconstruct the long tail cast on, and this creates an even stretchier edge. So if you say you want a really stretchy edge, then use the 2 needle cast on. Okay, so I cast on all my stitches, and now you can remove one knitting needle and turn around. And from here we can start knitting the actual, well, alternative to the tubular cast on. Start by slipping 1 stitch, bring the yarn forward, and then purl 1 stitch. So far things are super simple. And now you go all the way around and do a yarn over. So it's a yarn over, but you do it all the way around. So a normal yarn over would be like this. You dive in from below and create a yarn over. Now you bring the yarn forward and purl 1 more stitch. And that is already the full repeat. Again, repeat. Dive in from below, do a yarn over. Bring the yarn forward, purl 1 stitch. Dive in from below, bring the yarn forward to purl 1 stitch. So it may be a little bit unusual, but you will quickly notice that this is actually fairly simple. And you continue like this across the full row or round. And basically this was already the full secret. Now you can turn around and then you actually can see how the stitches appear. So now you just knit across in a standard 1x1 rib stitch. Start with a knit stitch, purl 1, knit 1 and purl 1. And you always purl the stitches where you, well, created these yarn overs. All these yarn overs you created, those are the stitches you need to purl, and the others you knit. That's the whole trick. And then from here on you continue in your standard 1x1 rib stitch So it's really just this one row where you create these weird kind of yarn overs where you need to pay attention. The rest is a standard longtail cast on and 1x1 ribbing. And we will quickly take a look at the results and show you why I feel this is just so nice. So as I said, here in the next row, you just continue in pattern, nothing special here. And from here on, it's just a simple 1x1 rib stitch. So a couple of rows later, this will be the result. See how really lovely this is. So you get this very, very invisible transition here. This would be the wrong side. A very, very nice, well, like sawtooth or so transition, just like the tubular cast on, but I feel the repeat is so much easier. I mean, not that the problem with the tubular cast on is typically not that it's difficult, but that the stitches keep on twisting around and then things get tricky. So I feel this is just so wonderful. Now you might be wondering, well, Norman, can I do this in the round? Of course you can. So again, start by casting on half the number of stitches you need plus 1 around 2 needles, and then distribute all the stitches to your knitting, double pointed knitting needles or your circular knitting needles. Then I always join in the round by slipping 1 stitch and passing it over. This here is just the extra stitch we cast on. And from here you can already start with the full repeat. So dive in from below and create one of these little yarn overs and purl 1 stitch. Dive in from below, purl 1 stitch. Dive in from below and purl 1 stitch, and so on. So I'm here knitting my last couple of stitches. The first round here is, I mean, still a little bit fiddly, but I think it's manageable. And then here, this is where things get, well, slightly different. Here is you're no longer turning around. This means here these stitches where you did the yarn over, these are the stitches where you need to knit and then you purl the rest. So obviously everything is upside down or the other way around when it comes to knitting in the round compared to flat knitting. But that is literally the only difference. And I feel, so many people have asked me, well, Norman, I can't do the tubular cast on in the round. And it's just, well, I feel it's impossible. Your only option is to knit 2 or 4 rows flat and then join things in the round and graft the gap later on. But with this alternative version, which creates a very, very similar edge, I feel it's actually doable in the round, or actually it's just a normal longtail cast on, and you've probably done this in the round before anyway. So I do feel this is a nice option. So I knitted across a couple of more rows here so you can see the result. See what a lovely edge this creates. And here especially take note of the transition here where the gap is. So the second question I get when it comes to the tubular cast on in the round is always, Norman, how can I make things look nice and neat in the round? There's always this gap and I don't know what to do. Well, with this version here, the gap is actually non-existent because you just knitted across. Again, please keep in mind that this version is not as stretchy as the normal tubular cast on. So if you want it stretchier, you need to use a stretchier version of the longtail cast on, the 2-needle cast on, as a base. Otherwise this will not be stretchy, but of course this can also be a pro because often the tubular cast on is a bit too stretchy. Anyway, that's how to knit the tubular cast on the easy way. I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and if you still have any questions, please comment below. And as always, happy knitting and enjoy the rest of your day.